Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat, and here are Toonami's ratings for March 7th, 2020. Let's start with the top of the block. At the top of the block, you have My Hero Academia at a 0.23, Sword Art Online, Alicization, War of the Underworld at a 0.22, Demon Slayer at a 0.20, Food Wars at a 0.18, Black Clover at a 0.17, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind at a 0.15, and Naruto Shippuden at a 0.13. All things considered, to sum up this week best, it'll be say that was a step in the right direction, but not quite there yet. Last week was pretty notorious for debatably being one of the worst rated weeks in the history of Toonami, if you factor out all the marathons. And you had this scenario where My Hero Academia is barely scraping a point 2. It's a little better this week. It's at a 0.23, so a small increase. In fact, for I think virtually across the whole board, you have small increases, although they aren't quite near the highs they were only a few weeks prior to this. The My Hero Academia at a 0.23. I mean, only a few weeks before this, it was hitting 0.3. So I mean, still, My Hero Academia still has some room to improve. And I've been told that what happened was that last week, the lead-in show, the 11 p.m. show, was the Boondocks, and this week it was American Dad. And some people are attributing this increase to having a better lead-in, which is pretty understandable. And I think that's a good theory. I can't really personally say anything against that as a theory, considering American Dad does typically have quite a sizable fan base and quite a sizable audience. And although it's very tempting to talk about how anime inspired the Boondocks is and how that should cross over if an anime block well, I think that the general fan base that American Dad does bring in also does have a fair amount of overlap with Toonami, with anime fans. So I think that's a pretty understandable theory. And now to the rest of the block. You have Sword Art Online. This season's been weird in format, where the first half you have basically like a "Where Are They Now" type special of the characters from Alicization, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, by the way, this is like this heaven versus hell wars happening right now, basically. And that's how the looks like the last 6 or so episodes of this season are going to be until they hit break again for the second half of War of the Underworld, which I know debuts in Japan in late April, so we'll probably get it at the earliest here in mid-May, and that's even if they decide to pick it up, because like I mentioned, Tanami really wants to have this 3-hour schedule now, so they might even pass on the second half of War of the Underworld. I would not rule that out at this point. But a 0.22 holds pretty well, and that's one good thing you could say, at least for the first half of this block, is that it retains pretty decently. And then after that, you have Demon Slayer at a 0.20. And if you know anything about Demon Slayer, this was that episode, the famed episode 19 a lot of people talk about. I've heard some people consider this the best episode in anime history, which honestly is definitely an overstatement. I actually ended up watching it. It's an okay episode. It felt in a weird way like it was felt very inspired by the technically the second to last episode of the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter, but I don't think it nearly hits the highs that that episode hit. Honestly, in general, I just don't think Demon Slayer really could fairly be considered one of the best shonen of even this era, in my opinion, which apparently is an unpopular opinion, but there you go. But the 0.20 is a decent rating, although some people believed it should have ended up winning the night because of how much hyped this episode in particular was. Then you have Food Wars more or less retaining well to 0.18. Can't say anything much negative about that. Then you have Black Clover, even better holding at a 0.17. Again, I guess by that standard's a pretty good week for Black Clover. And then you start having a little bit of slips. You have Golden Wind at a 0.15. I mean, that's one of the better ratings Golden Wind has had in recent weeks, so you can't say much negative about it. And then you have Shippuden, which is just kind of in this retirement home situation where it's gonna be in the same position for the next 4.5 years now. So not really worth bother talking about it that much. But a 0.13, I guess, for a show that's technically been out for years at this point on believe I believe some streaming used to have it. I believe it's on like DVD releases and stuff too. And there's always good old fashioned sailing the high seas, if you really want to watch stuff. But I mean, it's been around for a while, and I mean, a 0.13, I guess, all things considered, is not that bad at all. So ultimately, like I said, to sum things up, this was a step in the right direction for the block this week. Although I think for Toonami to really be safe about its long-term health, I think the magic number for My Hero Academia is to get a 0.27 and also maintains decent retention after that for at least the first half of the block. Like this is kind of like a almost arbitrary line I'm setting here, but I feel like that's the number that Toonami, that William Street is looking for the block, especially considering we know they aren't getting much money thrown to them to buy new licenses. They're getting money for new show to develop their own shows apparently, which is always, like I said, a high risk, high reward situation, which paid off with Space Dandy and not so much with the two Fully Cooley sequels. But again, it's gonna be interesting to see because Tommy's in this weird point in its history where, in theory, it could be on the precipice of complete disaster, or it can be on the precipice of having this unparalleled success. So it's this weird period in history, and we're kind of in this holding pattern until, on all likelihood, October when Uzumaki premieres. But again, what do you guys think about this week's schedule? What do you think about the ratings? What's your opinions on the block? What show do you think Toonami should bring on the block next? Leave your opinions down below. I love reading them. If you like this content, if you want more Toonami content like this, please like, please subscribe, and hit the notification button. I'm Super Orange Cat, and that is all.